Sir, we can start, sir. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome once again to the series of webinars on creating understanding various issues in women's health and also in Down syndrome as part of the Down Syndrome Federation of India. Today, we are very, very happy. We have with us a personality whom you will at the end of the talk realize who she is. She's Dr. Uma Ram, Director Obstetrician and Gynecologist at of Sitapati Hospital. She is a person who is very human and humane by heart, and she always treats her patient with an extraordinary amount of kindness and a soft and human touch. She aims to provide always evidence-based care. And I think that's very, very important in the current scenario. Practicing evidence-based medicine is the way to practice, and she practices with the fullest extent. And she's also very keen on creating awareness for women's health. She's spoken on various fora, including colleges and other women's groups, where she talks about women's health. And she is also the chairperson of the Royal College, the South India Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists International Representative Committee. So she's the chairman of the South Zone. And more importantly, she's got a completely another side to her, which is for her passion for the arts. She loves music. She enjoys dance, and I've heard her songs on Smule, which she sends sometimes, and also music, dance, reciting, travel, and she also does a bit of art. And whenever in between patients, when she has time, she quickly does a piece of art, and you would actually see it how extraordinary and enjoyable it is. Comes as a very refreshing art in the midst of a very busy schedule. So this is the multifaceted personality Dr. Uma Ram is, and I present her to you today to discuss about talk on puberty to perimenopause. Dr. Uma Ram, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suresh, for that very generous introduction. And thank you, Rekha Ramchandran, for asking me to be a part of this forum. I am quite excited and happy to be able to talk in this forum, considering the extraordinary amount of good work that is done by the foundation and all of you who are committed to it. I want to begin my presentation, and I hope that there will be a lot of interaction. Now, before we actually go on and I start my presentation, I thought it may be a good idea to get some inputs from those of you who have logged in to understand, what it is like here. Because when you look at information on the net about problems related to puberty or periods in women and children with Down syndrome, there isn't much to say that it is very different in terms of the issue, but obviously there are challenges and there are concerns. So in order for us to just understand, I thought we will do a little bit of like a poll to understand where we are. And I think all of you will be able to respond to these polls on your devices. Can you see the poll?
No. Is there a poll? We check.
Yeah,
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes. It's come.
Is it come?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'd like all of you to take a few seconds and answer. Have you discussed puberty and changes with your child? Okay, about 55% have voted. Fine. Okay. So about 36% have said yes, they have, and 64% have not. Okay, so I move on to the next question, which is, have you discussed periods or the menstrual cycle with your child? Okay. So this is more like a 50-50. I think it's a 46% have said yes and 54% have said no. And my third question is, have you approached a gynecologist for any of the following issues? That is period related or contraception, or with a request to suppress periods, or because of concerns about mood change? And you could, I think it will allow you to click more than one option. Okay, I think we have about 36%, only some of you have voted for this. And I'm not surprised because if you take any mother who comes to a gynecologist with her daughter, majority will be period related issues. Most of them do not come with any of the other queries, but I just wanted to understand how, how things are. Okay, so I will now move on and start my presentation. Just give me a second. It's visible? The presentation is visible, I see. Can everyone see the slide?
Yes, Uma.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go through a set of concerns starting from puberty and going on to later in life issues, and we can take it from there. So when we think about what are all the possible concerns that there are, it could be adolescent or period related issues. It could be contraception related issues. As I said, for older children, older women, it could be related to bone health and perimenopausal issues. There can be concerns about periods and mood change, and there can be concerns about puberty and sexuality related. So we could start with any of these topics, and maybe we can actually take an opinion as to which one you'll want to start on. I'm happy for you to answer and tell me on this. What is the first aspect that you'd like me to focus on? Or shall I just go through them sequentially?
I think they'll expect something from each of these subjects, Uma.
Yeah, that I will. I just thought I'll make it interactive and start with what they want to hear the most. Because
Looking
otherwise
at my
sometimes...
people, they're in a quandary.
Yeah.
They want everything.
Yeah, no, we will touch upon everything.
Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon. Okay, so we have about 50% who have voted, and I'll go in the sequence that they want, that has been requested here anyway, starting with adolescent issues and periods, then mood, puberty, sexuality, and then address bone health issues, and finally touch on contraception. Yeah, that's the kind of breakup that has come on. Okay, so as I said, we will touch on all of those issues. So what are the possible issues that you can get with periods? The commonest thing is that there is a problem with the period cycle. The cycles can be irregular, the bleeding can be erratic, and that pattern of bleeding being abnormal is something that caregivers, parents are concerned about. The second is with regard to hygiene and the logistics of managing a period. How does that, what are the issues based around that? And then painful cycles. So period related pain is also a problem. And these are the common concerns that come up in the course of consultation. But if you look at, is there any difference among these problems, that is period related issues, between children who are going through adolescence, who have Down syndrome, and children who don't? There is no significant difference in menstrual issues compared to other adults. So any adolescent child can go through these issues of irregular bleeding or painful cycles. Of course, when it comes to hygiene and managing periods, it can be more challenging when in children who have Down syndrome, because you may have to give, it may take longer for us to explain to them how to cope and how to manage. And often, especially initially, the parent or the caregiver may actually have to help physically with change of pads, etc. So, what are the things that we have to keep in mind in addition? So even though the nature of the problem or the kind of problems that young children with Down syndrome have with regard to periods is not different from other young adolescents, we have to keep in mind that some additional problems may be more common in these children who have Down syndrome. The first of which is your thyroid disorders. So because 25 to 30% thyroid problems are there, and we know that thyroid issues can result in irregular period, delayed period, no period for a few months, or even very early frequent periods or bleeding in between cycles. All of these can happen simply because there is a thyroid issue, and therefore we will need to ensure that the thyroid function is normal and thyroid levels are normal. The second thing that can affect period cycle is if the child also has epilepsy. And about 13% of children with Down syndrome can be on medication for epilepsy. And this can affect the menstrual irregularity or increase the menstrual irregularity because of the medicines that they are taking for keeping the epilepsy under control. So some of these anti-epileptic drugs affect the sex hormone cycle, and therefore period irregularity may be more common. So these are two things that we have to keep in mind. Now, this is one interesting article that I saw that was published in 2013, largely from Malaysia, where they have actually asked parents or caregivers on about menstrual care for children with Down syndrome. And the commonest, so they've asked them things like, have you thought about your daughter's reaction to the first period? Do you get depressed thinking about your daughter's reaction to the period? And things like that. So and also there was a lot of concern that there can be somebody who is irresponsible who may take advantage of their daughter. And majority were interested in getting information about menstrual care and hygiene. So this was just one of the articles that I could source. And clearly there was a requirement for more information to ensure they understood about how to cope with the problem. And what I found interesting here was that in response to this question, and of course this is Malaysia, have you ever asked any doctor about regarding your daughter's menses? And 85% of them had said no. So sometimes even though the problem is there, they may not have asked for help. And sometimes it is possible that they have asked for help, but they have not got the appropriate answer. So what are the things to watch out for with regard to period? What are the issues? So if the period is too often, so generally we say 28 days, 30 days is your menstrual cycle. This is because every month an egg is formed and that egg is released. This ovulation process, as we call it, the release of the egg happens around the 14th, 15th day of your period. We always count day 1 as the first day of flow. So the day the bleeding starts is day 1, counting from that day. So if the period starts on the 1st of July, then somewhere between 13th, 14th, 15th of July is when ovulation will happen. And therefore 28th, 29th July, you can expect the next period. But for some women and some children, it may just be that the ovulation gets delayed and the ovulation is always happening only around the, let's say the 20th of July, even though the period starts on the 1st, then that child will get her period only around the 4th or 5th of August, even though the first period has come on the 1st. So every month there will be a 4 or 5 day delay. But if this period starts to come very early, within 20 days, so every 18 days, 19 days, 20 days, if there's a period, then clearly that is abnormal. If the period doesn't come for more than 3 months at a time, that is also abnormal, that needs attention. If there is too much bleeding, so what is heavy bleeding can vary from person to person, but in general, if there is excessive bleeding, the child needs to change more than 4 or 5 pads per day, or if the bleeding is lasting more than 6-7 days, or whatever the level of bleeding that is making the child anemic, then certainly you need to address and get help. So what are the crux of this problem? Besides medication that we give to regularize the period, diet, exercise, and ensure that there is no excessive weight gain. This is very, very important for all period related problems, for everyone. and all the more so when the periods are irregular. So ensuring that weight doesn't go up, ensuring proper exercise is done, and regular healthy diet is followed is very important. So what should you do? Suppose you have a child who has these problems and you're worried that the periods may not be normal, then don't be scared about going and discussing, because many times parents are worried that, oh, if I go, they will give her hormones. And all hormones are not bad. Everything in our body is sustained because of hormones. The fact that we are getting our period regularly is because of hormones. So if it is abnormal, we may have to correct by giving hormones. Thyroid is a hormone. So if your child has a low thyroid, is hypothyroid, then you don't hesitate to give thyroid medication, isn't it? Because you know that the thyroid hormone has a positive impact. So in the same way, some hormones like progesterone may be needed to ensure that the period comes properly, and you don't have to be scared about giving hormonal medication in order to regularize the period. So we'll go back and we'll talk about, I think the next thing that they wanted, a lot of people wanted to address was period and mood. Now I mentioned the hormone progesterone. So progesterone is a hormone that is produced in the body as soon as the egg forms. So I told you there is ovulation. So there is a hormone called estrogen that is produced in the body as the egg grows, the egg ruptures, and then a hormone called progesterone is produced in the body. And then both estrogen and progesterone start reducing, and that's how the next period comes. So there is an increase in the level of progesterone just before the period comes, and then because the period progesterone levels drop, the period starts. So when the progesterone level is high in the body is when typically these symptoms, which are called premenstrual tension or premenstrual syndrome, happens. So at this time, you can be irritable, there can be sleep disturbance, there can be cramping of the body, there can be the breast tissue response to the progesterone, so there can be breast tenderness. There can be a tendency to get angry or teary, feel low, depressed, feel very fatigued. All of these are linked to the hormonal changes that happen. So how do we deal with it? We deal with it mainly, first of all, by accepting that this is normal. This is nothing is going wrong with the child. And to be honest, a lot of mothers may also be experiencing premenstrual tension. It is not just the children. So in fact, as we get older, some of them who never had premenstrual stress before can develop premenstrual tension. So the first thing is to educate ourselves to understand what is happening to our body. Now, if you have a child, an adolescent child with Down syndrome, who is suddenly showing some mood change just before the period, or you find that she is starting to be very depressed or low at that time, then even then it is helpful to educate them to understand that this is what is happening is normal. It's happening because of the hormonal changes, and see whether they are able to handle it and manage it. If it is not possible, and if it is affecting them significantly, then it is important to seek counseling. Now, counseling doesn't always mean that they will be given medication. Trained counselors can guide with methods in which to help overcome this depression or anxiety or the mood changes that they have. And some will need medication. And that is true of everybody. We see adolescents and we see young women who come to us with significant premenstrual tension and where they find that on those days they are not able to handle their job. Some of them are not able to handle conflict at home. So we give them medication which will stabilize the mood for a short time. So it's not something that cannot be done if required. And if started, it doesn't mean that this medication will become lifelong, because that's the other concern that all of us have, no? Especially when we want to think about taking medicines to improve mood. We are always worried, will this be addictive? I don't want to take medicine all along. So, but sometimes, especially if the mood changes are significant, it may be necessary to take it for a short period of time. But this is a small subgroup of people. Majority, with helping them understand what to do, seeking some counseling, engaging them in different activity, and regular exercise again has been shown to affect these mood changes positively. Cutting down caffeine, reducing starch, all of that helps with the premenstrual mood changes. Now, there isn't too much that I want to say about the perimenopausal period, but if we have older women who have Down syndrome, it is possible that when their periods become very irregular, they may be heading for menopause. Now, in an average, the average age of menopause is stated to be around 48 to 50. Now, sometimes it can be earlier. And the changes that happen in perimenopause are similar in people, those with Down syndrome as others who don't. And again, the three things that are important to keep in mind is any abnormal bleeding pattern that happens here first needs to be checked out. Don't assume that just because the period is delayed, hasn't come for 3 months, 4 months, it is menopause, and leave it. Because very rarely does menopause happen suddenly like that. Abruptly, one day period completely stops. Very rarely does that happen. Typically, what happens in the time of menopause is your ovaries are not forming this egg every month. Ovulation is not happening every month. So there is, I told you, till ovulation happens, there is a hormone called estrogen, which is acting on the lining. So if you don't get your period, you are not ovulated. That means the hormone progesterone has not formed. You have only estrogen acting on the uterus lining. The lining of the uterus will get thicker. It will start getting thickened. So let's say 3 months, 4 months later, the lining will become so thick that it can no longer stay inside and automatically bleeding will start. That bleeding can be very heavy and it can go on for a period of time. So this has to be balanced by giving some progesterone so that this prolonged irregular bleeding doesn't happen. Now, how do we differentiate then? What happens with menopause? Why do periods stop? In menopause, the reason period stops is your ovary completely stops functioning and the estrogen level also becomes low. So if there is no estrogen, then there is no thickening of the lining. The lining becomes completely thinned out and therefore the period stops. But there is a period of time, maybe a year, during which there is a stopping of the ovulation, but the estrogen level is still there. And this is the time where you can have prolonged irregular bleeding after a few months when there is no period. So during this time, it is important to seek help because sometimes you can have changes within the lining of the uterus that can result in abnormality. Bone health and bone density is very, very important in this phase. Again, calcium supplementation and exercise are very important. If there are any other specific questions, we'll take it in the answer time. Now, what about puberty and sexuality? Puberty is the other end of the spectrum. That's when all the initial hormonal changes start happening, and puberty is when the child first starts gaining height. So the first sign of puberty, be it a boy or a girl, is increase in height. So the increase in height happens, then some breast budding happens, then there is an increase in hair growth in the armpits, hair growth in the pubic area, and then finally there is the period. So you can kind of get a sense that your child's periods are going to start because all these other changes start happening before the period actually happens. the quoted mean age of puberty and the mean age where period starts for children with Down syndrome is slightly higher than other children. So it's quoted to be between the ages of 12 to 13. And obviously, it takes more time for these children to understand what changes are happening. And these are things that have come up in some of the published articles and some conversations with parents, that children who have Down syndrome are also less likely to be allowed to express sexual feelings. It doesn't mean they don't have them, because that comes to everybody during adolescence, and therefore we have to find ways of how to deal with it and how to allow them to express it. A lot of caregivers and parents have concerns about relationships and concerns about potential abuse, and for these reasons they may access healthcare, and they need to have a very understanding conversation to be able to understand what are the choices that they have. And that brings me to the last aspect of this conversation, which is to do with contraception. Now, it's not common to have parents bring in a child with Down syndrome to talk about the need for contraception, while they may come and discuss period related problems. So if there is a concern or if there is a request, then as a clinician talking as a doctor, I need to understand what the reason for the request is. Is there a relationship that you are worried about, or is it abuse that you're worried about? What is the reason? And based on the reason, contraception can be offered. And it is here it becomes important. Equally, it's important even when we prescribe any medicine, but all the more when we prescribe contraception, it is very important for us to make a judgment of whether that young woman understands what she's getting, why, and how to use the contraceptive effect. So it's this will require some degree of engagement to decide what is the best option for each person. And this is something that we would do even otherwise, because there are different methods of contraception available. Somebody may be happy to take a tablet every day. Somebody may say, I don't want to take a tablet every day, just give me an injection. Some may say, no, we just want to use barrier or condom for contraception. But in the context of somebody, when we are counseling someone with Down syndrome on the contraceptive options, we have to understand what will work best for them. And when we look at literature, most of the time they say barrier methods are to be encouraged, and the most common are long-acting injectables, where you can say, I will put in something that will stay in for a while, like once in 3 months, or once, like a long-standing implant, which is available in the Western world, but not yet available to us. If we are prescribing hormonal contraception or hormonal pills to regularize the cycle, it is important to remember that these hormones can interact with other medicines. So by that I mean, if the child or if the woman is on anti-epileptics, then some of the epilepsy medicines can interact with the hormonal medicines that we are giving, either for regularizing the period or for contraception. So the epilepsy medicine reduces the efficacy of the hormonal contraceptive, and therefore it needs to be kept in mind. So it's important to keep all this in mind when we are discussing about hormonal medications that are required to sometimes to be given to these children to regularize their period. So, so these are the kind of overall concerns that are there in relation to period cycles and related aspects between puberty to perimenopause. So maybe if there are specific questions, we can take some. And then we can continue.
Suresh, sir?
Yes.
So the
Can
question.
we start the questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a number of questions. First is, please shed light on hormonal changes that are impacted by thyroid malfunctioning and early onset of menopause in Downs.
Yeah. So like I said, thyroid hormone affects the menstrual cycle. There are a few hormones that can affect the menstrual cycle besides the estrogen and the progesterone. So one is thyroid, the other is a hormone called prolactin. So thyroid basically affects a lot of things that function in the body, including the way in which the cycles regularize. So the impact of, by affecting the balance of estrogen and progesterone, thyroid will impact the cycle pattern. So first thing to do if somebody has a thyroid issue is to correct the thyroid problem. Before you give them medicines to regularize the period, you first have to correct the thyroid problem. And once the thyroid problem is corrected, then we can, and still the period is irregular, then only we address and give progesterone or estrogen or some kind of a pill to regularize the cycle.
Okay. So I hear about early onset of puberty also in girls with Down syndrome. I respond no, because my daughter is 6+. I guess I should do that in a year or so.
So the average age of puberty is world over is reducing, and today we consider 10 to be normal. Menarche. Menarche is the word that we use for actually getting the first period. Puberty is a period of time where all these changes happen, and like I said, it starts with the height of the girl or the boy, both the first with the height spurt, and then, as I said, breast budding, hair growth, etc. Now, if you start seeing any of this when the child is 6 or 7, 200% you need to access help, because it is not normal to have pubertal changes at 6 or 7. If maybe I think Shivapriya may mean that she responded no to the poll that she has not discussed puberty yet because her daughter is 6. I don't think we need to discuss puberty at 6, but somewhere around 10, 9 and 10, we need to tell them about, explain to them what is a period, what are that the breast change is normal, things like that.
Okay. So how should I make my 6-year-old daughter understand about good and bad touch?
That's a very valid question. I think it's valid for all mothers today. There are some resources that maybe I can share with Rekha, and that through that to all of you. There are some resources which teach children about good touch and bad touch. In general, I think if you educate them that they don't allow people who they do not know to come close, and even if it is people that they know, they don't allow anything more than maybe a handshake or a pat on the cheek. Any attempt to touch any part of the body in the chest or below is certainly something that they need to be alert about and respond to you. I think there are two things. One is to tell them what is the nature of touch, which is bad. The second is to allow them to come back and communicate to you that this has happened. So both those awarenesses have to be there.
Okay. My daughter is 18 years old and she has very irregular periods. Please help. Initially she had regular, but since last 3 years it is not. Gynecologist has checked her and didn't find anything noticeable.
Yeah. So many 18-year-olds now are having irregular periods. It's a lot to do with lifestyle more often than not. The general things are to check, is there any weight gain? Is there a sudden increase in weight that has happened? Is there anything else that has changed in her routine in terms of exercise? Are there any other stresses that are working on her? All of that can impact the cycle pattern. Make sure that there is no abnormality in the thyroid or the prolactin. If all the hormone levels are normal, then it may be necessary to regularize the period with some medication and address lifestyle, especially exercise. The single most effective way to ensure that your periods come regularly is regular exercise, assuming all other hormone levels are normal.
Okay. So can you throw something light on some puberty in boys?
Actually, it's a little bit out of my area of expertise. But there is a sequence of pubertal changes that happen in boys. The first is, again, like I said, an increase in the height spurt.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll just try, just 1 second. I'll see if I can pull out that slide which I can project, and that will help them understand the pubertal changes. Can we just go on to the next question? In the meanwhile, I'll pull out this.
My daughter is 13 and her period has not started yet. Why?
Some girls have delayed periods, delay in the onset of menarche. I don't think we should be worried. In general, by 14, if we don't see any secondary sexual characteristics, by that I mean that if we don't see any changes in height, we don't see any breast budding, nothing at all by 14, then you have to seek help. Suppose you find all these changes are happening, but still the period has not started, you can even wait till 15.
Okay. So what about weight gain, impact of weight gain? Generally, our girls are overweight, says Shilpa. So what is the impact of weight gain?
Sorry. Yeah, so weight has a significant impact on menstrual cycles for everybody. And the reason it has an impact is because of the amount of fat that gets deposited. Fat is considered today to be an endocrine organ because there are a lot of hormonal changes that are produced in the body fat. The body fat, increase in body fat also increases what we call insulin resistance. Now, we all know insulin to be a hormone that acts to keep your sugar normal, isn't it? So we all know that in diabetes, insulin has some impact. What we don't understand is that this insulin has a very important role to play in ovulation. So in the formation of the egg, in ensuring that the egg is formed and released properly, the insulin has to act well. Now, when you are overweight or obese, you have insulin resistance, which means even though the insulin is produced in your body, it does not act on the ovarian tissue cells in a manner in which it can help ovulation. And this insulin resistance is the reason why you have polycystic ovarian syndrome or PCOS, and why you have irregular delayed periods. And that's why it's very important to impact of weight.
Yeah.
So just before we move on, since I've just found this slide, 1 second, I'll just put it out. Okay, so somebody had asked, so about puberty in boys. So this puberty in boys is between age 10 and 16. And what happens is a change in the body size and body shape. So the first things that you see, as I said, is the increase in height. Then there is a change in the size and shape of the body. The shoulders become broader. You see some swelling in the back area. Then their voice breaks. Then you notice that there is a change in the hair growth. Chest hair varies and that may come later, but you will see increase in the facial hair and then some changes in the skin. And then increase in the size of the genitalia and finally sperm production. So this is the sequence of changes in boys, and this is the sequence of changes that I already mentioned in the girls.
Yeah.
Hello. Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, go
Excuse
ahead.
me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, my name is Subhagini Sahu, mother of Down syndrome. My daughter's age 37 years old. 3 years, from 3 years, she stopped period. Or thyroid is affected, but hair loss become she suffering from hair loss, totally hair loss. Why?
So Shubhangi has said that her daughter is overweight, suffering from thyroid, and also her period has stopped for 3 years. And so she's also having hair loss. So what is it?
So did she say 47?
Yes.
37, ma'am.
37. Okay. So if the thyroid is normal and still the period is very irregular, we have to look at other hormones. Whether there is a tendency for what I explained, no, this because of insulin resistance, because ovulation is not happening properly, is the period irregular? Or if the period has completely stopped, is it early menopause? And if it is early menopause, we will check some hormone levels like FSH to find out whether this, for your daughter, the ovaries have stopped functioning very early. That we have to check and see. Based on that, we can decide now if the periods have actually stopped very early, should we give anything to ensure that the period comes properly? Because the function of the hormones is not just to get a period. It protects the heart, it protects the bones. There are many positive effects of estrogen in the normal cycle. So if you have a young girl or a young lady who is not, who for some reason periods have stopped early, and any period stopping before the age of 40, we would consider as premature menopause.
Yeah. So is there any specific screening of reproductive organs needed to be done in early childhood? The two people have raised hands. I'll come back to them in a minute.
Sorry, can you ask that again?
Now, is there any specific screening of reproductive organs need to be done in early childhood?
As a matter of routine, no.
No. Okay. So, ma'am, जो upper lip hair आते हैं, उनका क्या treatment है?
तो किस उम्र में अपर लिप हेयर आता है उस पे निर्भर है. अगर I don't know whether if I speak in, okay, I'll answer in Hindi and then translate into English for the others if they want. But अगर period minimal बाल जो period आने के time में होता है वो normal भी हो सकता है. अगर अधिक बाल lip में हो रहा है तो हार्मोन चेंजेस किस कारण से होता है देखना पड़ेगा. कुछ बच्चों को मेल हार्मोन जो टेस्टोस्टेरोन बोलते हैं वो ज्यादा हो सकता है. पीसीओएस सिचुएशन में भी कुछ लोगों को हेयर बाल मेल पैटर्न हेयर हो सकता है. तो हार्मोन लेवल्स चेक करके उसका ट्रीटमेंट लेना है.
Okay, Iron, can you ask your question now? You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Uma.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, I'm Irene here. I thank you very much for all the inputs. In fact, I was just going, my daughter is 25 years right now. She exercises every day and I control her diet on a very regular and strict basis. And she's been swimming for many years. She's an international swimmer. Just owing to the pandemics, we've had to take a break so far.
Yeah.
But I still make sure that she's exercising every day at home so that she's still ready when the next competition has to come about.
Mm-hmm.
Madam, she's 25 now, and I work in a hospital myself. And by the advice of my gynecologist, I had a check. We had a checkup on her. We scanned her reproductive organs, and everything was done. And it was, I was quite lucky. I mean, everything was very it was normal for her. And henceforth, we decided I'm actually looking for a companion for my daughter right now.
Okay.
And we are getting proposals. But the thing is, I'm looking for a boy, an able boy, because supposing they decide to have a child, and supposing I go for a boy with a disability, then I feel the risk is more, since both of them may have chances of not having a normal baby. But since she's trisomy 21, and after being assessed, she's a borderline child, Madam, can you please advise me what are the chances of her having a normal child if she were to marry an abled boy?
So I think it's a very obviously a question that will be foremost in all our minds. Is there a possibility that if somebody who has a trisomy 21 has a child, that child will be normal? There is a possibility that that child can be normal, but there is a possibility that the pregnancy could result also in a child with a chromosomal abnormality. So some amount of prenatal screening and testing will be offered in this situation. Recently, I can share this an experience, and maybe Dr. Suresh may want to comment on this as well. I can share this experience where we did have a pregnancy, have the opportunity to manage the pregnancy of a woman who herself had trisomy 21, and took her through labor and delivery, and she had a healthy baby. Prior to that, though, she did have 2 miscarriages, but this time around she carried this baby to term. It was an extremely supportive family. Her husband and mother-in-law, both of whom I think were incredibly supportive of this birth. And so is it possible? It is possible. You just need to look and wait and to find the right person.
Just have to find out that you have to understand that 35 to 50% of persons with Down syndrome will have a child with Down syndrome. So you need to do early testing, very early testing. And that is possible by about 12 to 14 weeks now. So that, and we can also, so that is possible. I also know of another person who has had similarly almost like 10, 15 years ago, married another person with Down syndrome who had delivered successfully.
Oh, okay. Dr. Uma, the couple who you just met who had the healthy baby, was the husband, was he a normal person?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. It gives me a lot of more hope for this. Thank you very much, Doctor, and Dr. Suresh as well. Thank you.
So there is one question about a PCO, and so if you have whether having PCO will cause problems in the children. Having polycystic ovary will not cause an abnormality in the child. If your periods are erratic or irregular, it may delay the chances of a pregnancy because ovulation is not happening predictably. That's all.
Yeah. Sumant Hanikeri, can you ask your question, please? Unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah. If the husband is also a Down syndrome person, will that be okay? What will be the result? That's one thing. And my daughter is 36 years now. She is on 125 mcg every day she is taking. It's putting on a lot of weight also. That is a major concern for us. Yeah. She is also having, she is having very good hair, but she is losing a lot of hair right now.
And menstrual period also earlier regular it was, no problem. Since from when she was 10 years only she got menses. And afterwards it's a regular for 5 days and normal flow was there. In between it came down to for 4 days, then it was 3 days. Now it is nearly 3 days. But first and second day, then flow will be there for pad will be changed for twice. Then the third day will be the only one. Now she is having the regular, and doctor also told she may get menopause early. Like that he told. And she is on thyroid, 125 mg. And on Sundays in the week, one day it will be a half tablet. 6 days will be 125, and the 7th day is half tablet.
Yeah. So, yeah, so again, like I said, irregular periods, we have to work our way through the problem. If the thyroid dose has to be adjusted, and sometimes it's, as you say, this happened in your daughter's, the dosing every day may be slightly different to ensure that the thyroid control is good. If the thyroid control is good and other hormones, we would check prolactin, we'll check what is the FSH level, and we'll make sure that that combination will tell us whether there is a tendency for early menopause. So if the FSH level is starting to go up, then it means early menopause is likely to happen. Weight gain, certainly, I cannot emphasize this more. Weight will certainly be an issue which can result in irregularity in the period, and therefore some form of weight loss, largely through diet and strength training, which will improve the, because as in Indians, as a race, we have more fat than muscle. So if you then gain weight, you're actually sometimes losing muscle and gaining fat. So we have to invest in some form of strength training to ensure that the period irregularity is improved.
Yeah, I think
there's like a 50% chance that they can have a Down syndrome child if both parents have Down syndrome. Maybe Dr. Suresh can.
Yeah, actually, the fertility in boys is a little less. So there are documented cases where males with Down syndrome and a couple with Down syndrome have had a child, but this is very, very rare. So to generalize and say in a specific instance, I think you need to look at the fertility and go and consult the doctor specifically for that. Now, I think, Uma, you need to proceed with the lecture.
Yeah.
And then we'll take other questions later. Yeah.
So I'm quite happy to take more questions because a lot of that is getting covered anyway.
Yes, yes.
So there is one question about, is there an advantage of putting a young woman with Downs on contraceptive? I don't think there is an advantage unless there is a need. So the question is there a need? So the need may be because, there is a possibility of a relationship. Sometimes parents come because they are worried that there could be, abuse, or they are concerned that they don't want an untoward pregnancy because the child or the young adult doesn't understand the implications of, a sexual relationship or even a sexual act. So that is the situation where contraception comes into play. There have been some, the other thing I wanted to discuss is painful periods. Now, painful periods are very common, and period pain is only because the uterus cramps, the body produces a substance called prostaglandin, and that induces pain. some amount of period pain is common for everybody. But if there's very severe pain, then, and it is persistent, it typically period pain will be low back pain, dull ache, start of the period, and then it will go away. That's normal. But if the pain is very intense, it lasts through the 3-4 days of the cycle, then first thing is to make sure that there isn't a fibroid or a cyst or something like that that is causing the pain. And if there is, then that has to be treated. If there isn't, then we can address the pain by simple painkillers. Yoga can be an extremely effective form of dealing with period pain, and I would strongly recommend that as an option. Swimming or any kind of physical activity that relaxes the pelvis is also something that will be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe one last question. My daughter has the habit of changing clothes frequently despite the need for change. No need for change. Is it an issue? Sometimes just spotting and she's changing.
I think that's a hygiene issue. Maybe she's worried that it will get wet. You have to talk to her and find out why, and explain to her that she need not change it if it doesn't get wet at all. There's a question that my daughter's 10, breastbudding has started, but ultrasound has shown an infantile uterus 1 year ago. I would not worry about, I mean, unless the uterus size is extremely small, a scan done at 9, certainly the uterus measurements will be small. If she's 10 and breastbudding has started and she's gaining height, I wouldn't worry. If you're worried, then ensure that the ultrasound is done in a proper, well, in a good center, because many people are not trained to report on the uterus and organs in young children.
Okay. I think we should get along with your lecture.
Excuse me,
I don't
was
have too many more slides actually. So,
ma'am, this was regarding my daughter. The center which I visited, he's a very renowned ultrasonologist, and I've been into medical field, so I know the reputation that he is one of the best people. And he told me a year back, because she had kidney stones, then we had gone, then I just got the lower abdomen done. So he told infantile uterus. So just that, I mean, I'm not worried periods should come, but just want to know that I should be prepared, you know, teaching her that if the periods are supposed to come now or late, or how long, because now I don't see, but will the size grow or will this always remain infantile?
Actually, it's a little difficult to say, but I think certainly compared to what the uterus size is at say 8 years or 9 years, the size will grow. If the breastbudding and everything has started, I would wait and give it a year more, and maybe at that time you can reassess and then take a call.
Okay, it won't have any hormonal thing. Also, I see her a lot of times, like she wears a pajama and she'll put her spoon or anything there. Is it that she's having some sexual craving or something? I mean, why she does it? All the pajamas she'll tear off, and I'll see she's watching movie and she'll put her something there. I mean, is that okay, or is that
what
normal?
Age?
She's 10 years now.
Yeah, no, I don't think, I think you need to tell her that that is not something that should be done, and try and get her out of doing that. We don't expect there should be sexual desires at that age group. And sometimes they're just curious because there are some body changes happening. And we've had children, even those who, I'm not talking just children with Down syndrome, any child, come in sometimes because they've inserted something into the vagina. So it's, they're curious, so they may try and play. But I think if you notice the tendency, it's important, it's an opportunity to educate them. And that may also be an opportunity to educate them about good touch and bad touch and things like that.
Right.
And tell her
Thank you
it's
so
not a
much.
good practice to do.
Yeah. Thank
Any
you so much.
tests? Thank you. Rika, any tests that we have to do every year after they get their period? Per se, I don't think we need to do a test every year. Maybe check that they're not getting anemic along with the thyroid test. But older, certainly the younger, the women with Down syndrome who are definitely over 30, breast examination becomes very important. And some form of a physical examination is important.
Yeah. I think we should go ahead with the lecture.
Yeah. So the yeah, so realistically, the only last bit of the talk that I wanted to talk about is to address nutrition and focus on the importance of nutrition through the different aspects. Around puberty, it's important that we correct anemia, and in their diet ensure that there is enough green leafy vegetables that go in. And at that time, if there is an anemia, then correct it with vitamins or iron replacement. Because especially in children who have a thyroid problem, there is a tendency for anemia to set in. It's around for the older women who have Down syndrome, it's important that we supplement calcium. So calcium, in addition to the calcium that comes from the milk, it is important that we supplement calcium. And in general, we say, especially if you cross 40, because in India, there is a very high tendency for low vitamin D levels. And if, especially if, I mean, nearly 80% of India, they say vitamin D levels are low. So even if you are having adequate dietary intake of calcium, if the vitamin D level is low, then the calcium will not get absorbed. And so vitamin D and calcium supplementation is something that needs to be done in addition to what is in the diet. And dietary calcium obviously is from milk and curd. Now, increasingly, there is a tendency for a lot of people to become vegan, which means they are not having milk, they are not having curd, they are not having any dairy products. If any of you are vegan, then it is particularly important that you replace the calcium additionally, either as medicines, because the traditional other replacements of calcium will come from broccoli, almonds, things like that, which we may not be consciously introducing into our diet on a routine basis, because those are not foods that we will always have on a day-to-day basis. So I just wanted to emphasize the importance of calcium and the importance of to visualize the plate of food that we have. So if you take a food plate and have it as a circle, half the plate has to be greens and vegetables. Only quarter plate has to be your carbohydrate, be that carbohydrate rice-based or wheat-based. Any bread cereal group should be only quarter plate, and quarter plate should be protein. And if you're vegetarian, that protein will come from sprouts and dal, and of course from milk and curd, because that gives you whey protein. So this, normally when we eat at most homes, the plate composition is not like this. The plate composition will be, half the plate will be rice, bread, cereal, wheat, chapati, whatever. Quarter plate will be green vegetables and quarter plate will be dal. So if we reverse the plate, so in this fashion, then certainly it will meet most of the dietary needs that are available. So the dietary nutrition needs are very important. So in possibly one of the things to check, especially if you're anyway having annual tests, is to ensure that there is no iron deficiency and there is no calcium and vitamin D deficiency, especially in the older children. So, so that was the bit about nutrition that I wanted to add and finish my presentation.
Okay, thank you. So people have said very informative session. And also there's a question, are there any tests that we have to every year after they get their periods? That we've already answered that question, I think. My daughter has small Punsi pimple on private body. Frequently hygiene check is proper. Kindly help.
The commonest reason that you can have a boil is a hair follicle infection. So, just an antiseptic like betadine or something will help it settle. There is actually no need to try and remove hair from the private areas. And sometimes in trying to do that, you can actually predispose to ingrowth of hair, resulting in this kind of a follicle infection.
Many times we find iron, vitamins, calcium deficiency. So we have to test for it, and how often?
Yeah, so that's what I said. If we are going to do, I mean, if you are anyway going to have an annual health check, it probably makes sense to check and test for iron and calcium.
Okay. The same thing, a lot of questions on hair on the throat, and it increases with age. So probably when I say about probably the neck, in front of the neck.
I'm not aware actually. Why should there be hair front of the neck?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I think whether this question has been answered. She is 42 years old. My thyroid level is okay, but 2 to 3 times I had irregular periods before. This month also, before getting periods, I have pain in the back and legs for a week. As my period have started, I had pelvic pain, back pain, which is unbearable. What should I do? Sweta.
So if there is unbearable pelvic pain, like I said, you can take a painkiller. The simplest painkillers will work to reduce the pain, whether it's paracetamol or ibuprofen. Take it as soon as the period starts. Don't wait for the pain to peak. But if there is sudden onset, severe pain that persists beyond a cycle, then have a check, because you don't know whether there's a cyst forming or something like that.
Okay. So there is a person who has got a 5-month-old child, Saddam Hussein, and Down syndrome baby. Shall I start solid food for her like other babies?
I should think that should be possible. Certainly.
Yeah. And I think we have asked questions.
Most of them, isn't it?
Sumant has raised his hand. Sumant, you want to ask something now? The question is answered.
Just I wanted to know, could there be a surgical intervention with the contraction you are talking about? Could there be a, because we are already pretty old, 75 plus. So just to see that in any eventuality.
Yeah. So surgical for contraception, you're asking, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So surgical contraception or permanent contraception is actually something that parents with many children with of any other kinds of altered ability or disability do ask us. It's possible, but it means that the child goes through anesthesia for it. And today there are other reliable forms of long-acting contraception which may need a change, say, once in 5 years or so. So we always discuss those options. And we also try and see whether the individual adult understands the fact that a surgery procedure is going to be done. I mean, I'm saying this from the medical perspective, what are the things that we check? So because some of them have fairly good comprehension, they understand what is going on, in which case they can themselves consent for the procedure. Now, if they don't have the ability to give consent, then sometimes there is a legal process that we need to go through where the parent or the guardian gives consent, and then we can do the surgical procedure. So there is a process, but yes, it is possible. And a lot of couples think in the same fashion in which you have asked the question, that it is a single time procedure. We may not be around to continually bring this person to have, you know, a contraceptive change, even if it is a 5-year IUCD or whatever. So yes, it is an option to discuss.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Uma, has been a very, very informative session. I think they've said very informative session and so many issues covered. And I think it's been a great opportunity to listen to you. And almost lots and lots of doubts have been cleared. So Rekha, you want to give some concluding?
Uma, lots of people want to consult you. So
Okay.
what is the best way of consulting you, WhatsApp or by mail?
Yeah, I will type my email ID,
Please.
and then they can connect.
And while you're typing, let me tell you that we haven't got such amazing information for a long, long time. I think you've given all the parents a lot of hope when you said that, you know, the persons with Down syndrome can be married and can have children. This gives us so much hope for the next generation. And it was great hearing you, Uma. And I think there's going to be a demand for you once more, definitely. Thank you so much, Uma, for giving us your time. Thank you so much. Honestly, it was great. Thank you.
My pleasure, and I'm
Yes,
happy to
we
be
have-
able to have had this opportunity to interact. I mean, I think it's a mutual learning process in these kind of a situation, because sometimes, and this is something that I have learned over time, that sometimes we have parents or come in with a query, and we don't, as doctors, often understand from where that query is coming. What is the reason for this request? So if we understand the reason for the request and take time, then we may be able to offer solutions or options. And ultimately, it is for that individual to make a decision. So this is true for everybody, but I think particularly when we have situations like this, and you know, differently able children are brought with specific problems, the trouble is that we need to take more time to understand, and our clinic setup, or sometimes it may be more than one consultation. And sometimes the parents expect a very quick fix answer, which we may not be able to give also. So it may mean 2 or 3 interactions before we can come up with something that is mutually helpful. So thank you very much. I think it's as much a learning for me as it is for others. So I do appreciate this opportunity.
One more thing, Uma, can we frame out a set of questions that people can, you know, find the necessary answers for a subject like menopause? Because they are finding it very difficult to understand that there is a very thin line dividing menopause from, you know, the age factor, the factors. So what do you look at? What is it that I have to understand about my person? Weight, all these questions. If I can mark it out and send it, and you can give us the appropriate answers, we can put it up on our website, because we still haven't got anything on this particular subject on our website.
Yeah, we can do like an FAQ, I think. Yeah. So if you can put the questions, you know, if you can gather the common concerns and questions, then we can, I can try and respond to them in a way in which it will be easily comprehended.
Thank you so much, Uma. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Keep in touch. Thank you, Uma.
Yeah, thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you for your
Suresh.
time, sir.
Thanks, Brinda. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. There was not anything from FB
Thank
Live.
you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really, it's a good section. We needed it.